What if I told you that one of the world's most powerful companies has been caught red-handed, bending the rules to keep its stranglehold on the internet? And what if I told you that this isn't just some minor infraction, but a massive, calculated strategy that could finally be blowing up in their face? Today, we're talking about Google and how they've been quietly paying billions to rig the game in their favor, keeping competitors out and keeping themselves on top. This isn't just about shady business practices, it's about the entire future of how we search, shop, and live online. Today, we're going to go into the courtroom drama where the US government and almost every single state have joined up to take on the tech giant in what could be one of the biggest antitrust showdowns in decades. We'll uncover the secrets behind those default settings you probably never thought about, why they're so crucial, and how they could be part of the biggest con in internet history. Plus, we'll explore the potential fallout. What happens if Google loses? Could we actually see this tech titan broken apart piece by piece? And even if we do, will it really make things better for the rest of us, or are we just opening up a whole new can of worms? The stakes couldn't be higher, and the twists in this story are just getting started. So, how did Google become the king of search? Was it because they had the best product, or was there something more sinister at play? Spoiler alert, according to a recent court decision, it's a bit of both. Google didn't just stumble into controlling 90% of the search market by luck. Sure, like every other business, it started off as a scrappy little startup with a better search engine. But then it turned into a monopolistic territory. The US Department of Justice, along with almost every single state in the union, joined forces and decided that enough was enough and slapped Google with a lawsuit that's been years in the making. The essential claim, Google isn't just winning because it's good, it's winning because it rigged the game. And here's how they did it, by paying billions to make sure that Google was the default search engine on pretty much every device and browser you can think of. You know that little search bar on your iPhone? Yep, that's there because Google made sure it would be there, and they paid Apple handsomely for it. The court recognized that by locking in these default agreements, Google was able to collect massive amounts of user data, which only made their search engine better, creating a feedback loop that further entrenched their dominance. Competitors couldn't catch up because they couldn't get the scale needed to improve their own products. This kind of self-reinforcing monopoly is exactly what antitrust laws are designed to prevent. It's not just about who's on top, but how they got there, and more importantly, what they're doing to stay there. But Google didn't just stop at being the default. Oh no, they had a whole other strategy to keep their rivals down. Let's discuss some of Google's more shady deals that the court said prevented competition. Ever wonder why you don't see other search engines popping up more often? It's not because they don't exist, it's because Google locked them out. And along the way, they did so by means that are straight out of a villain's playbook. Let's talk about exclusive dealings, shall we? Google made sure that companies like Apple, Samsung, and Mozilla couldn't even think about preloading a different search engine on their browser. How? Well, it turned out to be relatively simple. Google just threw money at them. Lots of it. We're talking about billions in revenue sharing agreements. But it turned out that these deals were like golden handcuffs. Once you're in, you're not getting out. And guess what? The court that oversaw this case just saw right through it. Under US antitrust law, specifically the Sherman Antitrust Act, it's illegal for a company with a monopoly power to engage in exclusionary or predatory practices that prevent others from competing. The DOJ argued, and the court agreed, that Google's deals to be the default search engine weren't just aggressive business tactics, they were a form of exclusionary conduct designed to maintain Google's monopoly power. According to the court, this wasn't about Google competing on the merits of their search engine. Rather, it was about Google making sure that no one else had a shot of competing, period. So, if Google has in fact been gaming this system the entire time, you might be wondering, what's next? Can the Department of Justice really take down a company this powerful? Well, let's talk about what could happen next if the DOJ gets the full measure of what they want. Okay, so Google is liable for antitrust practices. Big deal, right? What's the worst that can possibly happen? Oh, just the potential breakup of one of the most powerful companies on the face of the earth. This isn't just about a slap on the wrist. The DOJ is asking for what they call structural relief, which in plain English means they might force Google to split up its empire. Imagine Google's search business separated from its advertising arm, or YouTube being spun off into a standalone company. Sounds crazy, right? But it's not as far-fetched as you might think. The court hasn't decided on the exact remedy yet, but the implications are massive. Think back to the last time a major breakup was ordered, United States versus AT&T in 1982. The court ordered Ma Bell to divest its local exchange service companies, leading to the creation of the many baby bells. That breakup fostered competition in the telecommunication market and led to the innovations that we benefit from today. The question now is whether a similar breakup of Google could have the same effect in the digital space. Not only could this reshape Google, but it could set a precedent for how other big tech companies are handled in the future. Amazon, Apple, Meta. If Google goes down, they're all likely to be next. But here's the thing. What if breaking Google up doesn't actually solve the problem? Let's explore why this antitrust victory may not turn out to be as big of a win as it initially seems. What if, after all this legal drama, the real winner turns out to be nobody? Yeah, that's right. This whole case could just wind up being a massive waste of time. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Even if Google loses, there's no guarantee that anything will change practically. The reason is simple. Google is dominant, at least in part because people like using it. That's right, even with all the sneaky deals and anti-competitive practices, users still choose Google because some users think it's good. The court even admitted that Google's search engine is better than the alternatives. So even if they slap a user choice screen on every device, like they did in Europe, chances are people will still pick Google. Breaking up Google might not lead to better competition either. Instead, it might just make Google less efficient without really giving its competitors a fighting chance. And let's not forget the global impact. Google is a multinational company with operations all over the world. Any breakup ordered by the United States would have ripple effects across the globe, potentially leading to a patchwork regulation that could stifle cross-border digital innovation. So what's the end game here? If the DOJ gets its way, we could be looking at the most significant antitrust action since the breakup of AT&T. But will it work? That's the billion-dollar question. Breaking up Google might sound like a great idea on paper, but in practice, it could lead to a whole host of new challenges, both for the consumer and for the tech industry as a whole. But before you start thinking it's all doom and gloom, there still is a lot at stake here for you, the consumer. So what does all this legal mumbo jumbo actually mean for you? Well, let's just say that your search experience might be getting a whole lot more complicated. If Google is forced to change its ways, or worse, break up, your online experience could see some serious shifts. Imagine logging into your iPhone and seeing a whole lineup of search engine options instead of just Google. Or maybe you start noticing that Google's search results aren't quite as good as they used to be because they're no longer getting that sweet, sweet data from all those default settings. And of course, we can't forget about the ads. With Google's advertising arm also possibly being spun off, you might start seeing fewer, dare I say it, creepy targeted ads. But here's the flip side. If it all goes sideways and Google loses its edge, we could be looking at a world where the best search engine isn't necessarily the most accessible. Suddenly, finding what you look for online could wind up being a whole lot more frustrating. Google's been playing dirty to keep its spot at the top, and now the law might be finally catching up. In the end, this case is more than just about punishing Google for bad behavior. It's about setting a precedent for how we handle tech giants that become too big and too powerful. The stakes couldn't be higher. And whatever the outcome, it's going to have far-reaching consequences. But what do you think? If Google's search engine really is the best, does it matter how they keep their dominance? Should the government break up big tech, or do you think it will do more harm than good in the end? Do you think a world without Google as a default search engine will be better, or will it just be more complicated? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. I can't wait to see where you stand on this. Until next time, I've been Uncivil Law. Remember to keep it uncivil out there.